In the Lord's house this evening. Appreciate you being here. Always glad to have those that are watching the service. We appreciate each of you. I met a pastor this past week in a restaurant, and he come and introduced himself. I can't remember his name. I think Brother Randy and them knew him, but I never had met him. But he said, I watched your sermons, enjoy listening to the sermons at Waterloo, and I appreciated that. I told another preacher I get some notices sometime. I don't check to see who watches and who doesn't, but as last Wednesday night or Wednesday night before, I had something popped up because sometimes somebody sent me a message, said there were about 300 people watching last Wednesday or Wednesday before. I said, I'm going to start counting them for church. And preacher said, how many did y'all have? I said, well, somewhere between 300 and 400, somewhere in there. But anyway, some preachers probably would do that, but it's good to see all of you here tonight. I appreciate the right side. I appreciate the left side too. The left side is more of a remnant side, but we have the bounties on this side, and then we got this side, and then we have the back row back there. And y'all got room tonight. You get here on Sunday morning, you better be early to get on that back row because that fills up first. But Revelation chapter 20, it's good to see you this evening, Revelation 20. I appreciate Sister Lynn Irvin, Brother Josh helping us today get money over to the Philippines. We went ahead and sent what was given Sunday night, and just to help them get some things accomplished over there. And Brother Ken had tried to send it Western Union, and I think Western Union just doesn't like churches or something, I don't know, but Brother, he couldn't send the total amount that was given to send last week, and he did it in increments, so he went back and tried it and halved it, and it went through both times, and then they canceled it because they told Brother Ken it was a scam. And so I said, they probably think it wasn't a scam. They probably think we laundering money or something and sending it over to the Philippines, but he tried to explain to them, but it didn't do any good. But I appreciate Miss Lynn getting the paperwork and everything done at the bank today, and Brother Josh going over to the bank up in Ashburn to get that sent over. So it's Wednesday or Thursday morning now in the Philippines, so hopefully they can get that right away to get some things accomplished because the situation is very dire there. And I had a preacher from another state call me. He said, we'd like to join in your offering Sunday. We'd like to send some money from our church. And then Pine Bluff over in Albany, their assistant pastor called me this morning, I think it was this morning, and said, our pastor said, can we join in with y'all to help? We want to help also. And then I had, before I come to church this evening, I had a friend that I was in a church outside Atlanta years ago, and he said, could me and my wife give in that offering? So I appreciate people wanting to be a part and help over there, and we'll be receiving that special offering on Sunday morning. So I hope you'll pray about it. We really, there's a lot of need there. It's just devastation, and I appreciate those that are giving and those that give on Sunday. We're praying for a great offering on Sunday to be a blessing there. Revelation chapter 20, we're going to look at the first 10 verses, and we'll just look at the verses as we go along, just not to go back and rehash them, to read them and go back through them again. But at this point now, we get Revelation 20, the tribulation is over. When Jesus returns to the earth, defeats his enemies at Armageddon, that ends the tribulation period. And now the Lord, as we start here in Revelation 20, is preparing the earth for the 1,000-year reign. And this is a literal kingdom. It's a literal reign for 1,000 years that the Lord will reign upon the earth, and it'll replace the governance of all the evil rulings of the world that have been going on during the tribulation period and are going on even in this day. We know probably most of the governments of the world are evil. We understand that. But you notice here in verse number 1, John said, and I saw an angel come down from heaven having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And so here he writes about this angel comes down. I read one writer who said that's the Lord. I wouldn't argue against that. I wouldn't argue for it. But it appears to be an angel that is empowered, that was given the key of the bottomless pit, and the Bible said he had a great chain with him also. In verses 2 and 3, the Bible said, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. Now, this angel binds the devil with a chain. He's bound. I've been to the hospital sometime and see people where, because of medicine or whatever, that they're tied to a bed. That'd drive me crazy. And it does people. Sometimes people have to be bound. That's hard. That's hard when you have to bind somebody. That's a hard thing, a very difficult thing. But I don't feel sorry for the devil at all. He's going to be bound. He's going to be bound. He ain't going to be able to do anything for 1,000 years. No longer, think about all of these years now, the devil's been going to and fro on the earth. But for 1,000 years, he's chained up, and he's cast into the abyss, into the bottomless pit, bound for 1,000 years. As I thought about that in studying this passage, I was thinking about the devil. You know, the devil's got a brain. He has intelligence. I'm thinking he's bound for 1,000 years. I wonder if he's thinking about back when he was in heaven, where everything was perfect. I'm thinking the devil's probably thinking about that. About all these years ago, I was in heaven with God, with the Lord. And now look where I'm at now. I think he's probably thinking about the Battle of Armageddon. He just got ambushed. And the beast and the false prophet, of course, his henchmen there. And no doubt he's trembling over his future, because going through all the devil has gone through, he cannot feel good at this point. There's no way any good thought is coming into his mind. And so here's something else that has not happened since the Garden of Eden. For 1,000 years, there is no temptation on the earth. There is no devil on the earth to go after anybody. For 1,000 years, he has no influence, no devilish influence on this earth. It's going to be a prosperous time on the face of the earth. But John says, after the 1,000 years are over, notice what he says there. After he's going to be shut up, seal put on thee, should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed. And sometime I'm writing or thinking about that, and I say the devil will be loosed. He's going to be loosed. Well, John said he must be. There's a difference in saying somebody's going to be loosed and saying they must be loosed. And so there's a reason for that happening. There's a very good reason for him must being loosed. For 1,000 years, during this millennial reign, babies are being born. People are having families. Their children are growing up. They're raising families. They got children. They got grandchildren, got great-great-grandchildren. And so all of this time now, they're being raised up. There's no temptation there. There's no devil coming after them, no evil influence. And God's going to turn the devil loose on that crowd. He's going to let them be loose. Why is that? Why would the Lord do that? Well, the Bible tells us God's no respecter of persons. Everybody gets to heaven the same way. How is that? They got to believe on Jesus Christ. And everybody in the millennial reign, those that have not decided, they're going to have to make a decision in the millennial reign. And the devil's going to go after all that he can go after. And they're going to have to decide it's going to be Jesus or the devil. They have to make. You don't just be born. Nobody's just born and goes to heaven. You've got to decide if you're going to follow Jesus. And if you don't follow him, you automatically follow the devil. And so he must be loosed, because he's going to go after the world. He's going to go after all that he can, and they're going to have to make a decision. Then notice in verse number 4, he's loosed for a little season. We don't know how long that is, but he has his opportunity. In verse number 4, John said, and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. And so here he sees the thrones of judgment. Now, we don't understand exactly how that'll operate on the earth and how the thrones are. The Bible doesn't specify that. But here, sitting on the thrones, he sees the saints of all the ages, all the way up through the tribulation period, those that have been beheaded for the cause of Christ. Of course, they were beheaded in Jesus' day. But all the way up through the tribulation saints, they'll be those that will rule and reign with Christ, those who refuse the beast. And God's assigned roles of judgment. The Apostle Paul wrote about that at the church at Corinth in 1 Corinthians 6, verses 2 and 3. You could put that beside that passage if you want a point of reference. But he said, do you not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world should be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? And of course, we understand Paul was talking about issues there that they were having to deal with within the church and among believers. He said, no, you're not. We shall judge angels. He's talking about fallen angels. How much more things that pertain to this life. And so God assigns roles. We don't know who will be assigned who. We don't know what God will assign us as a saint to do, but we know that we'll be there with Christ during the millennial reign to rule and reign upon the face of the earth. In verse number 5, he said, but the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Now, if you just read that verse and don't pay attention to what you're reading, it's a confusing verse. And so you have to understand what that verse is saying. Verses 4 through 6 is talking about the first resurrection, the resurrection of the saints, that the Lord's coming. That's the first resurrection. And so that's the resurrection of the saved. In verse number 4, he talks about those risen in the first resurrection. John inserts here, he speaks here in verse number 5, he mentions the resurrected of the wicked. But verses 4 through 6, he's talking about the first resurrection. But here in verse number 5, he inserts this statement here that the rest of the dead will come forth after the 1,000 years are over. So what he's talking about here, verse 4, 5, and 6, he's talking about the first resurrection. And he pauses there. After verse 4, he said, but the rest of the dead live not again the 1,000 years are finished. He just inserts that thought here. Here's the first resurrection, the resurrection of the righteous. But after 1,000 years, the others are going to be. But then he said, this is the first resurrection. He's talking about what he's been talking about. He's not talking about the rest of the dead that's going to rise after the 1,000 years are over. He's talking about those in verse number 4, the prior mention of the resurrection. So he said this is the first resurrection, but he just inserts that statement saying now everybody else is going to be resurrected after the 1,000 years are over. But if you read that verse and just don't decipher what it's saying, it sounds contradictory, but it's not contradictory at all. And so that verse dispels also any notion that there's a general resurrection. Some people say everybody's going to be resurrected at the same time, and the saved are going to be judged in their judgment. The lost are going to be judged in their judgment. That's not going to happen. The Bible tells us here, verse number 5 dispels any notion of a general resurrection. There's not going to be a general resurrection. In verse number 6, he said, blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. And that's talking about eternal death. That's talking about people who rejected Christ when he's talking about the second death. That's a spiritual death. But they shall be priests of God and of Christ and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And so John emphasizes here those in the first resurrection, they're the blessed ones. Those that come up in the first resurrection, those are the ones that have trusted Christ. And so they're blessed. They're going to heaven. They're going to live with the Lord forever. They're going to rule and reign with the Lord on the earth during the time of the millennial reign. They're the blessed, not the ones in the second resurrection. Verse number 7, he said, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Now we see the release of Satan from the bottomless pit. That phrase, bottomless pit, there speaks of the abyss. And no doubt, now he's been bound for 1,000 years. A seal has been set upon him. He's not able to go do anything. He can't do anything to anybody for 1,000 years. And then God's going to turn him loose. He's going to be like a lion out of a cage. I mean, he's going to be on the prowl. He's going to be going just like he did before. But remember this, God said he's only got a short time. And so the devil is going to be going at a pace, no doubt, that it's never gone before. He's going to try to do everything that he can do. Now, I don't believe at this point, I don't know what the devil thought some other places, but I think when we get to this point, this is just my opinion, okay? I can't give you a Bible verse to back this up. I'm just giving you an opinion. But I don't think at this point the devil has any belief at all that he can overcome God. I believe that thought's long gone out of his mind. Every time he's tried to do something, he's been defeated. I don't think at this point the devil thinks he's going to defeat the Lord, and there's going to be another fight. There's going to be one more fight, and he's going to lose that one. And we'll see that in closing tonight. But I don't think for a minute the devil believes he's going to defeat the Lord at this point. Now, there's other places I think the devil thought he had a chance. But after all he's been through, but here's what the devil's going to do. He's going to try, he knows where he's going. And he's going to try to take everybody he can with him. I believe that's his objective here. That's my personal opinion. If you believe that he thinks he's got a shot at defeating the Lord, I wouldn't argue with you on that. That might be right. I just don't see that after all the defeats he's had. I believe the devil feels pretty sure he's a defeated foe. So I think now his objective is to take everybody to the lake of fire he can do. It's kind of like somebody in some kind of crime ring. If they go down, they know they're going down. What they going to do? They're going to take everybody down with them they can. That's just what they're going to do. They don't want to take the spill for all of it. And the devil, regardless, even if the devil thinks he's got a chance, he's going to take everybody to hell, to the lake of fire that he can. But he only has a short time to do what he's going to do. And knowing his future, I think he wants to take as many to the lake of fire as he can. Verse number 8, and shall go out to deceive the nations, which in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Now here's another reason I believe the devil knows that his end is already decided. The Bible said he's going out to deceive. That's what he's going to do. He's going to deceive. He's going to fight. He's going to go down fighting. But his objective, John tells us, is to deceive the nations. And here we see an innumerable company of people that'll follow Satan. Now think about it. After all this transpired on the earth, during the tribulation, now you've had the 7-year tribulation, and now you've got the millennial reign that's going on for 1,000 years. So you've got 1,007 years worth of history. Now granted, many of these in the millennial, most of the people are, I'll say many, I can't say most, because I don't know how many be born and how many is on the earth at that time. But now understand this, all of those born during the millennial reign, they have no personal clue about the tribulation. And there are people that will transition from the tribulation period. They're going to go right from the tribulation period. All of those that are living at the end of tribulation, they're going to transition right into the millennial reign. They're going to be right here on this earth during the millennial reign. They're not going to disappear. God ain't wiping everybody out. There's going to be plenty that are killed there at the Battle of Armageddon, but the population of the world is not wiped out. And so the millennial reign, there are going to be people there in the millennial reign that have not been saved and will not be saved. But they've raised up children. And these children been born during this time. They have no knowledge of the tribulation. So how would they know anything? Well, here is a time that their parents could tell them what transpired during the tribulation. This is not a point of giving the gospel to those that have heard the gospel where God sends strong delusion. But here's people that's raised up children. They lived during the tribulation period. They could tell their children if they want to what happened during the tribulation period. And so they have no personal knowledge of it. And so the devil goes out to deceive just like he does now. He goes out to deceive, and many will join his army, and they'll go against the Lord and his people. And John said their number is as the number of the sea, the sand of the sea. They're innumerable. There's so many you can't count them. So there's a host that will be deceived. And the Bible says about these that are deceived by the devil, verse number 9, they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. Now here again, we see a hatred for Jerusalem. We talked about this earlier back in the Revelation. When the devil couldn't get Jesus, he went after the city that birthed him. He went after the home of the Lord there in Jerusalem. He's there. That's going to be God's capital of the world at this time, Jerusalem. And so his hatred and their hatred for Jerusalem and the saints of God. And they've got their strategy mapped out. Now, there's enough people in this army, the Bible tells us here, that they encircle the city of Jerusalem. That'd take a lot of people. And I'm sure they wasn't in a single file line. I'm sure that they're line upon line, but they've encamped around the city of Jerusalem. That'd take a lot of people to do that, but that's what's going to happen here. They mapped out the strategy. The devil's got it planned out. They've got Jerusalem surrounded, and they're getting ready to go in. And here comes God again. The Bible said he's going to send fire down from heaven. God can send it down in flames of fire. It could be lightning. I don't know how God's going to do it, but I know he's going to devour them. They're going to all be killed. He's going to wipe them out. They ain't ever going to get to charge. When they get in line, that's it. Yeah, they're going to get charged. They're going to get fired up for sure. But they've got Jerusalem surrounded, and the Bible said God sends fire down from heaven and destroys every one of them. That's an amazing thing to me, the way that Battle of Armageddon ends and the way this battle ends. And this right here in your Bible, is the end of the devil on this earth. His time's over on this earth, and he'll have his place in the lake of fire with the beast and the false prophet and every evil person that followed. Verse number 10, the Bible gives us that statement. And the devil that deceived them was cast in the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. The devil sentenced to the lake of fire. That's going to be a good day when the devil's sentenced to the lake of fire. He's subjected to never-ending torment. My wife was telling me today about a 19-year-old, I believe it's a 19-year-old young man that was intoxicated on drugs, come around to pass somebody on the road, hit another car head on and killed all, I believe, 6 people in that other vehicle. And my wife said that boy, 19 years old, she said, I feel for his mama, his dad, if he's got one, mom and dad. 19 years old, and he had all of these counts of homicide, vehicular homicide, and under the influence of this and that and all. And they give him a term of 65 years. And I doubt in our system he'll serve it. And I hate that. 65 years, a 19-year-old boy messed up. But you know what? I told my wife, if you do it, you got to pay. You still got to pay. God will forgive you. But we live in a society now where you don't have to pay like you ought to have to pay. But I feel for that. I feel for that family, that mom and dad. I feel for them. But I don't feel sorry for the devil. Boy, the devil's caused a lot of heartache on this earth. But right here, in a flash of fire, God takes him out, removes him from the earth. And God's going, we'll talk about it, but there's going to be a brand new earth here. It's going to be the way God wanted it the whole time. And what a day that's going to be. But there's no jury to find the devil guilty. He don't go before a jury. We're not going to judge him. He's guilty. And God makes the judgment. And there's no reason anybody ought to follow him. But they do. They do. And people today still reject the devil. And I see all of this that transpires before the devil's unleashed. And I'm thinking, why in the world would these people follow the devil after they've lived for 1,000 years in peace? But you know what? If you don't have Jesus in your heart, a lot of them's living that way in peace because they have to, not because they want to, because that is a peace imposed upon the face of the earth where to be righteous rule. And then all the devil's crowd's going to be wiped out and banished in the lake of fire. What a sad day that's going to be for them, but a glorious day for God's children. I appreciate your attention tonight. Appreciate you being here.